What is up, you guys? Welcome to Mindset Sessions by Off the Wall Therapy. I am Brock Eisman, and I am stoked to give you guys a look into the sport and performance psychology world. I am here to help you create tools and to optimize your potential. Let's get it. How we doing, everybody? All right, so my name is Brock, and this is Mindset Sessions. For those of you who don't know, we have 3 segments to the podcast. The first segment is interview, and that is what is happening today. We have a special guest on, and we interview them, much like a lot of the different podcasts that you probably listen to. Today's special guest that we have, his name is Chris Logan, and the other 2 segments are Q&A. Q&A is basically questions and answers. You guys can shoot those questions in, and we will talk about them, 2 to 3 questions. You can email those in at brock@offthewalltherapy.com, or you can DM me on Mindset Sessions Podcast or Off the Wall Therapy on Instagram as well. The other segment is P&B, and what P&B is performance and brain. And basically what we do is we take research studies that we find interesting or that you guys send in that you say, hey, you should talk about this. So that is the 3 segments. Today is interview, and we have Chris Logan on. So Chris is going to kind of tell you his story, the things that he has gone through in his life, different thoughts that he has on different topics, and I'm hoping that you guys can get something out of this conversation. I met Chris at a Bible study and took him to an Off the Grid. We actually just got back from an Off the Grid this past weekend. Off the Grid Therapy, an event that is at Off the Grid Therapy on Instagram if you want to check them out. That event that we have going on, it's amazing, and there's so much to it if you haven't checked it out already. So Chris is going to kind of introduce himself and give you a little bit of his story. So appreciate you guys listening. Yeah.
So, which is fine. I mean, the whole intent behind anytime I share, what it is and those pieces of my story, the hopes are that somebody hears it, maybe is encouraged to reach out to somebody for help, or somehow gets, some hope through what it is that I've shared, and is like, hey, you know what? This guy can do it, so can I, kind of a thing. So, yeah, and the story is the story, man. Like, that outside of the getting too much into detail, like, it's gonna be consistently the same, because it is what it is. For sake of time and sensitivity, a lot of times, depending on who's there, I leave out a lot of the details, obviously, but yeah, that's fine.
Well, I mean, we got an hour and a half today, so
yeah, we're good. And then if you want to ask questions along the way, that I'm good.
I absolutely will.
Yeah,
no, totally.
Sure.
All right, so Chris, we've been going.
Nice. Somehow I kind of knew that. I was like, yeah. This is his slow way of, like, not freaking me out and, like, slow transition into things.
No, and what you don't know is that I put, like, an intro in before, like, introducing you.
Yeah.
You thought I was going to get into, okay, here we go, everyone. This is Chris. No.
Yeah.
I typically will have a conversation like we just had and then roll into it.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like that's way better. But, yeah, explain who you are.
Yeah.
Where you came from. What's your story,
where
man?
I came from.
What's your story, man?
So much to it. I mean, if we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the background and how it is that I came to do what it is I do for a living.
And also, for the sounds, there is Reagan, who is your dog. Why don't you explain who Reagan is first?
Yeah. So Reagan is a certified therapy dog.
He's in here right now.
Yep, he's in here. You're probably hearing him. He's been at work all day. We just came straight from work. So he's kind of looking for a break. He's about to do a shake here. And he's a therapy dog. I work with an organization. I treat first responders for post-traumatic stress and mental health and addiction. So he is part of that. Him and I kind of coach and help clients along the way. He's a good emotional support as well as some, comic relief from time to time, and just I work with a lot of law enforcement guys who are, canine handlers, and a lot of people that just have canines and dogs at home. And so he lost his ball back there. That's why he's whining. And so, he just offers that kind of relief, and he's really keen to emotion, as most animals are.
Yeah.
So he has the ability to kind of read the room and see, who may be going through something, or might just need a little bit of time and physical attention. He'll do what's called a lean, where he'll kind of get up on you and just lean his body into people. So 2 things I've really seen change a room full of big alpha male tough guys. Majority of our clients are male. We do treat females, but is babies and dogs. And they see babies and they're a little bit softer, and the dog enters the room and they get a little bit softer too.
Yeah. What kind of dog is he? I mean, he's
a mix.
He's a big boy.
Yeah, he's big. He's about 84 pounds, 85 pounds. Mix between a Lab and a Staffordshire Terrier. He's got a little bit of German short-haired pointer in him. So he's a good-sized dog.
Athletic dog.
Very.
Yeah.
Very. Super fast, agile.
And he's got a rad vest on, too.
Yeah, he got some new patches today. One of the clients put some patches on him. He's got a really cool color, too, of he's like a brown and black mix of the Lab, which is cool. So he's a great dog, man.
Is it Little Bro, or is that the new patch?
Yeah.
Little Bro.
Little Bro, and I'm obsessed with treats, and I don't know. They put some other patches on his vest.
Oh, I actually have treats in my bag. There's these, obviously he's inside the office right now, and he's smelling Huck and everything in here.
Bro.
Can I give him liver?
Absolutely.
Does he like liver?
Oh, yeah.
My wife, she only buys the...
All natural. Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's all the liver and... Oh, you smell that? Yeah. You smell that? Hey. Good boy. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You didn't even chew that up.
No, dude. Swallow it whole.
Yeah, it's liver. I think it's dehydrated liver, actually.
It's a liver jerky.
Something like that. All right, that's all gone. Look. All right, sweet. So,
Good.
Tell me a little about what you do.
Yeah. So I mentioned, I am I'm the director of clinical operations for an outfit here in Newport Beach, where we treat first responders for mental health and addiction. I oversee kind of the day-to-day operations, as well as getting into some of the clinical stuff. I'm a certified substance abuse counselor and have been for a lot of years. So I can help on that level, as well as, kind of lining them up with the right therapists and stuff like that. I facilitate groups as well.
What year did you start doing that? Or is this something new?
No. So the first responder specific treatment is about 5 years. So I've been specific in treating that population for about 5 years. But the mental health and addiction field, I've been in behavioral health since 2000. So I got sober in 2006. I went back to school 2008. Got into my internship probably somewhere 2009 or 10ish, and I've been doing it ever since.
Awesome.
So yeah, I've done everything from adolescent counseling to crisis intervention. I've done sober transport. I've done all kinds of stuff within the field. So
what led you to get into this field? And I know that's going to go into your story, but
for sure,
kick off the story.
So I dealt with my own addiction problems early on in life. I as a result of many things, and we can talk a little bit about kind of the ins and outs of addiction as the conversation goes on. But my personal story, as a result of, I think, several things in my life, being raised by a very young single mom. My mom was 16 when I was born. So he's sniffing up here at the table.
He smells the liver.
So, that kind of posed its own problems later on in life. My mom was super young, super immature. She kind of had some of her own challenges and issues with substances. So I think I was exposed to a lot of things really young. And then there's kind of that addictive gene that I have that runs in my family, and we can talk more specifically about that. But that kind of led me to experimenting with alcohol and other drugs really early on, 12, 13 years old, just sneaking beers or finding weed around. And that really kind of got me started early in life. And from there, it really just kind of progressively took off over the years. And, that would lead me into, late teen years, early teen years. We're just partying and kind of experimenting and playing with stuff that I had no idea of what it was or how it was going to affect me later on in life. As most teenagers, you don't understand how things are going to affect you later on in life, right? You're just kind of doing what everybody else is quote unquote doing or what seems to be cool at the time. Smoking cigarettes, drinking beer, smoking weed, that kind of thing. So, that just kind of led to later years in my life with some big struggles, man. And, there's a lot of things. I think if I'm going to get into my story, I really need to clarify that both my parents today are really good people. And I don't blame them for any part of my story or the things that happened to me. As I mentioned, my mom was really young, so as I've gotten older, I've understood like she was a baby raising a baby, and she wasn't making the best decisions either.
How old is she when she had you?
My mom was 16 when I was born, so 16 going on 17. So she was super young, and my dad was probably 21, 20 something, somewhere around there. And I didn't get to meet him till way later on in my life. But so as I talk about parts of my childhood and things like that, if anybody listens to this, I need them to know that I don't blame my parents for any of that stuff. I think they were doing the best that they could do with what they knew and what they had. But that being said, there was a lot of abuse, a lot of neglect, and those sorts of things I think pushed me out of wanting to be at home. My mom would have different people around, and they weren't the best people, so it made it difficult to want to be home or to even be home. And so I spent a lot of time with the wrong people, and that just kind of like every movie you've ever seen, hanging out with the wrong people, the wrong crowd, you start doing the wrong things. And that just kind of became the things that I was doing constantly in my life. So you get into, junior high, high school, and that kind of stuff carries on. I grew up, we moved a lot, but primarily I went to school in North Long Beach in the 80s. So that was a rough time, man. Boys in the hood, realistic kind of stuff. And it was not an easy place for a little white kid, surfer kid from, a nice part of Long Beach. We lived in a historical place in Long Beach, which was weird. So it wasn't easy, but, it was what it was. And so, in and out of rough neighborhoods, those sorts of things. And then, I went to the last year I attended high school was at Polytech, and I don't know if if you're familiar with that.
I played football against
and
them.
Most people who play football. So it's again, it's not the easiest place for a little scrawny white kid to be. So it was a tough time, man. And
that's actually my grandpa. He went to high school there and played baseball there.
Okay. Yeah. So you get it.
But then again, I think back then it was, even more different than now.
Yeah. For sure. But again, that just led me to kind of adapt to some things and got pretty good at defending myself and those sorts of things. So, and I've never been one to shy away from that kind of stuff. So, but and somewhere I had a younger brother, and somewhere in probably 89, 88, he found my dad, which my mom and dad were divorced when I was super young, like 2, and we didn't know my dad. So he finds my dad. Long story short, we end up moving to Tennessee, a super small town in Tennessee, where my drinking just took off, man. At I think I was 15, going on 16 when I moved there, freshman in high school, and I was drinking, partying every weekend, drinking throughout the week, and it just escalated to a point where by the time I was 17 or 18, and my dad he had his own drinking problems at that time and was fairly abusive, so we had a couple of physical altercations, and at 17 years old I left home. It was the best thing I could do, and come here. Sorry, he's over here whining. And
he's off duty.
Yeah,
Job's over for the day.
Yeah, it was the best thing I thought I could do. And with that came a lot of independence and no parental supervision. And so, I dropped out of school, started working a construction job, and with that comes more drinking. And you're young and trying to prove yourself to a bunch of full-grown men. And so you work hard, you fight hard, you drink hard, and that would eventually lead me to just making a lot of really bad decisions in my life for the next, 15 years, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Come here. Yeah, and so eventually I moved back to California, and in moving back to California, my addictions kind of grew. I started kind of experimenting more and more with drugs, harder drugs, and that really took me down a path of destruction. And, from the time I was 18, doing all that knucklehead stuff, I started going to jail real early too. And so I kind of continued that lifestyle when I moved back to California, and the drugs increased, and with that came a lot more of the legal problems and kind of the consistent going to jail. And I've been in high speed chases trying to outrun the cops. In fact, I ran my car through a house at like 20 years old, and so I ended up in jail for quite a bit of time there. Thousands and thousands of dollars worth of fines. Just knucklehead stuff, man. 5 years of state probation, which is like in lieu of prison. So I was lucky there. And like I said, that stuff just consistently happens. When you're drinking and messing around with substances like that, it doesn't take long for things to really kind of come off the tracks, and with that kind of a lifestyle comes those sorts of consequences. And so I wasn't anyone special, and I didn't escape any of that stuff. So that continued up until my early 30s. I think 2006, February 18th, 2006 was the last time I have had any drugs or alcohol. It was also the last time I was arrested. And that was the day I was in an Orange County jail cell and surrendered my life to a God of my understanding at that point in time, which I didn't quite understand what that meant. All I knew was, it was one of those things you kind of see in the movies. It's like, God, if you're real, I'm done making all these empty promises. Like, if you're real and you can get me out of this, because I was looking at some pretty heavy charges. They wanted to send me to prison for a minimum of like 18 months. And I'm not cut out for that kind of life, man. I'm not that guy. Prison's rough. So I've done a handful of county jail time, and so that was the beginning of like my life kind of rebuilding. And I turned my will and my life over to a God that I didn't really understand, but I threw everything down at that moment. Like, listen, if you're real, I'm done. I can't continue to live this way. The idea of not waking up the next day became something I was really comfortable with. It was never this intent of like wanting to commit suicide or kill myself. But it was the idea of just not existing, right? If I didn't wake up tomorrow, that would be okay. But at the same time, I don't have the guts to kill myself, right? Like, I'm not that guy. So it's just surrendering at that moment and saying, listen, I'm hopeless. I'm helpless. I can't stop drinking and using drugs no matter how many times I've tried. And I've tried on my own. After getting in trouble, you'll try to clean up or whatever, and it just wasn't working. It was beyond human aid at that point. And so turn it over, guide me, help me, save me, whatever. And it was from that point on when things would really start to be put back together in my life. I was lucky enough to get offered a drug diversion class or school that I would have to attend for quite a few months in lieu of any prison time. And the judge told me, he's like, Mr. Logan, this is your one and only chance. If you don't complete this, you're going straight to prison. No questions asked. And I was like, okay. Didn't know how. Didn't know where I was going to live. I mean, I knew nothing except I was going to get out of jail. And I made this deal with God. So, from there, things just kind of started adding up, and opportunities were, placed in front of me, and I continued to take those opportunities. I was able to find a sober living that I ended up staying in for 3 years. And during that point in time, that's where I was able to kind of go back to school. I went back to school for two things. I started back to school to do electrical work. And I was in my second year apprenticeship, and that wasn't God's plan, so he changed things up on me. But I think he kind of knew it was too early to introduce me to this counseling piece. So he said, here, you've been a construction worker your whole life. I'll give you this little electrical job for a minute, and then I'm going to change it up on you. So I was in school doing that, working as an electrician, and I got laid off. And at that time, I was seeing a girl who was like, hey, I'm going to go down to this school and become a drug and alcohol counselor. You should come down and check it out. And I'm like, okay, I'll go. All right, it's a girl. I'll go wherever you want me to go. And so we're there in the office, and the guy's like, hey, what's your deal? And, I'm an electrician, bro. I'm good, He's like, are you working right now? And I was like, no. And he's like, hey, check this out. California is doing this thing. It's called California Training Benefits. He's like, I can get your unemployment extended up to a year if you're willing to go to this school. And I thought, you know what? One, I don't have to work for a year. I'm young. I don't want to work. And two, what's it going to hurt? I could have this side hustle for, these other things. And so I said, hey, you know what? Let's do it. And I started into this school, and all of a sudden it just really intrigued me. And I was learning so much about myself and why I was doing the things that I was doing, which I was amazing because, in addiction, you're suffering from these things and you don't understand why. You don't understand how drugs work in your mind. You don't understand the genetic component. You don't understand the environmental component. You just know you're drinking and using, and there comes a point where you don't want to do it anymore, but you're still doing it, And so being able to get into this school and get educated about all this stuff was amazing to me. I got to learn about my family of origin. I got to learn about family roles. I got to learn about, the addictive pieces in the brain and how the reward system works. And all of these things was answering so many questions for me on why I was doing the things that I was doing, even though I didn't want to do them. And so in short, I fell in love with it like right out of the gate. And I'm not a guy who likes school at all, right? I'm dyslexic. I've always had a hard time in school. I dropped out in the 9th grade because of multiple reasons, but here I am, and I'm in this school, and I'm fascinated with it. I'm just fascinated with it. And, in learning it and doing these presentations and all of these things, I find that I'm actually pretty good at it, and I'm picking up on it really quickly, to the point my teacher was like, hey, man, you're really good at this. You have kind of a natural, way about you, and you're really getting this. He's like, I think you're going to be a really good counselor, which was cool. from there, I finished the school. Would go on to do my internship, sit for the state certification. I passed that, and things have just kind of been going ever since, man. So it's been a great journey along the way. Because I think when I started really learning about myself, it really gave me this idea that if I can learn this stuff about myself, and it's really offering me this relief and understanding about why the things were happening the way that they were, what would it be like to be able to help other people understand that? You know, and I just thought that would be really cool. And I think having gone through all the stuff that I'd gone through, it's one of those things where you sit down with a therapist and you're like, what do you know about the stuff you went to school? You know, and it's like, how can you talk to me about hardships and drugs and alcohol? It's like, you went to school to learn this stuff, which is, it's an unfair assessment, but it's the reality of how a lot of people look at it, especially when it comes to drug and alcohol counseling. They want to know that you have been down in the dirt, man, and made your way out, you know. And I thought that's exactly what's happening. So I feel like it could be really effective on that level. Yeah,
I kind of going off of that, when it comes to sports psychology, I think we talked a little bit about this.
Sure.
But in psychology, there are a few, and I'm relating this to sports because, like, a sports psychologist, you look at a sports psychologist, I would be way more empathetic and listen and kind of relate more with someone who actually had been an athlete.
Sure. 100%.
And as opposed to like a 350-pound guy who's telling me that this is how I deal with adversity, or when I need to go work out, like, this is what I need to think about. And
right.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to what your career is, and I mean, I wouldn't want to go see someone who's just like had this perfect life and not gone through anything, or
it's that relatability, right? And you're speaking to kind of that same thing. It's like, you know, of course, and I use it as an analogy all the time. I'm like, listen, if you want to go out and if you want to learn how to pitch really well, who are you going to go out to get you to coach?
Yeah.
Right? To coach you how to pitch. You're not going to go get a quarterback. You're not going to you're going to get the pitching coach. You're going to get the guy who's pitched, you know, and understands it. It's kind of that same thing.
Yeah.
Not that you couldn't learn something from the quarterback, but at the same time, there's not going to be that relationship. And when it comes to, you know, psychology and therapy, there really has to be that therapeutic rapport. And if that's not there, it's difficult, man. It's a difficult bridge to build. It can be done, and I've known some clinicians to be really good at it because they're really good at that empathetic piece. And when you're really good at having empathy for someone and someone can feel that, they're really not then so worried about your qualifications, right? Have you been down in the dirt? Do you really know? They're like, I'm sitting across from somebody who's making a real effort to understand me, so I'm not really concerned about where their knowledge of this comes from, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. This is making me think about my whole identity of what I do and why I do it, and why I don't wear a collared shirt, and why I wear Vans into work, and because it's just who I am.
Yeah.
You know, and
sure.
I feel like that helps a lot, because
100%.
a lot of the people I work with, it's just like they work out in like workout clothes, and they dress a certain way, and that's how I always dress. So why would I come in here and try and look like someone I'm not?
Yeah.
You know, like, sure, I have education and I have all these things that I've gone to school for, but that doesn't necessarily help with like me just connecting with an individual.
And that's what it's about, right?
Yeah.
It's that connective piece, and us being able to say, like, listen, it doesn't matter what you're wearing or not wearing. It doesn't matter where your education comes from at this point. Like, I'm not concerned about that. What I can see is that true empathetic therapeutic value to sitting across from somebody who's willing to put their self in my shoes. And when you can gain that understanding and that trust, then the education piece comes in. And now it's like, hey, well, we've got this relationship, right? And this is that piece where it's like, and I'm sure you run into it in the psychology as well. It's kind of like, there's a point where you really have to confront somebody's behavior or the way that somebody thinks or what they believe. And you have to trust an individual for them to start pressing on your core beliefs or the way that you think and behave, right? And if you don't trust that person, game over.
Yeah.
You get super defensive. This is over. What do you know?
You put up a wall.
I'm done with you.
And you
man.
can see that too.
Yes.
Like sitting on this side,
Yes.
you can see when someone puts up a wall or when someone walks in with a wall. I actually enjoy it a lot more when someone walks in and they don't want to talk. They don't want to say that they need to work. They don't have any weaknesses. They're just like, no, I'm good. I'm like, why are you here?
Yeah.
You know?
What brought you here then?
Then why are you here?
Yeah.
Well, someone told me to go and do this.
Yeah.
You know? Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know? Like, well, obviously someone really cares about you.
Exactly.
I mean, for
why
me...
would somebody tell you to come see a therapist or a counselor or a psychologist? Why would somebody do that?
Yeah.
Any clue?
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like, whoa, you know.
So it's really fun. It's really fun in this job, and I'm sure you deal with it too, but every single person is so different.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have the same philosophy on, like, this is exactly how I do this, like, there is a right fit. You know, there's totally a right fit. Sometimes it's not a right fit, but I think for the most part, that is the most fun part about my job, is that every single person's so different. And every person that comes in, it's like, I have to I don't have like a set thing, like I do this, and this with them. It's more of like, okay, what is this person going to relate to and really buy into? So then we can start working on all those other things.
Correct.
You know, because all those other things are really important. Like I have a standard, and I'm sure you guys have a standard that you follow as well.
Yeah.
Core values, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But it's always like one that I got to throw in there that I'm like, okay, that's going to get them fired up about this.
Yeah. This is where the resistance is going to come in, right?
Exactly.
When I start making my way towards this, and again, that's typically like, you know, and I don't know how much, I mean, I imagine on some level it has to play into the psychology as well. Because really you're looking at human behavior. You're looking at, you know, what's in the way of you, you know, transferring over into this and achieving this goal, right? Like what's in the way of that? Well, what kind of adverse behaviors or things that aren't productive or in the way of that, you know? And obviously when it comes to what it is that I'm doing, like we're looking at, you know, whether it's untreated mental health or in specific like the use of substances, right, that are kind of impeding on their ability to obtain this quality of life that they want. Well, with that comes a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and all of those things, right? So nobody wants to look at that. Nobody, you know, they want to minimize, they want to justify, they want to rationalize all of the things that have them doing this, right? All the reasons why they should and could be doing what they're doing.
And I'm kind of, Chris actually just came back from an off the grid trip, and that's what led kind of into this conversation that we're having now. You mentioned shame. You talked a little bit about shame over the weekend, and I want to understand a little bit more deeply, like your thoughts on shame.
Sure. I think when it comes to understanding what shame is and how shame operates, we really need to understand, right? So you look at the difference between guilt and shame. And if I ask you, do you know the difference between guilt and shame?
No.
And a lot of people don't, right? And so one is very healthy and one is very toxic, right? Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am something wrong. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am something bad. And when you have a belief that says, I am something bad, or the theme that continued to come up at Off the Grid was, I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. And that is at its core a very shameful way to think, right? Guilt is motivating in the ways of like, hey, I did that and I don't like the way that I feel about the results of what I did. I want to change that behavior. Guilt is about the behavior. Shame is about the person. And when you feel I am something wrong, I am something bad, I am not good enough, I am those things, you got to start to really kind of look at the core of that and where it comes from. Because shame is one of the most corrosive human emotions that we can experience. And when you're stuck in that, and that is the belief system that you have, that's the filter that you run everything through, right? And so imagine that this filter is in kind of the forefront of all of your thoughts that just says, I'm something bad, right? I'm something wrong.
I'm not good enough.
I'm not good enough. And so everything that comes through that filter is then kind of just toxic to the rest of your brain. And you constantly set yourself up to just
perform extremely poorly.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you can't get out of that, because at the core, it doesn't matter if I did this thing right at some point or this thing right. I'm not enough. And what you see is that's where you get into kind of quantity over quality and those sorts of things, where it's like when you're at this shame base, and this is really with very high performing people. A lot of people I work with, and I'm sure a lot of people that you work with that are very high performing, right? They can go out and achieve a lot of things. And you'll see that people have a tendency to go out and achieve and achieve and achieve and achieve. And they stand back at this wall and look at all of these achievements. And at the end of the day, what do they feel?
Still not enough.
There's not enough.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be enough. Why? Because at my core, there's this shame-based thought that says, I am not enough. So therefore, none of these things are going to fulfill. They're not going to fill that hole. And so it's so corrosive. It's really one of the big things that that I work with our clients on, right, is really kind of getting into that shame piece. Because with, and you got to look at it in the ways of, and I'm sure this happens a lot with really high-performing athletes, right, is that they've achieved all of these things and they're seen by people in a certain light. Can you imagine the way that firefighters and police officers are seen, and then to know that they've had problems or struggles with drug addiction or alcohol or mental health? Like that same with your athletes, right? Like they want to hide from that, right? And you talk about, well, where does shame exist? In the dark. It's in the dark. The shame exists in the dark, and it's the things that we hide from. And so to think that, hey, I've achieved all of these great things, but yet behind closed doors I'm struggling, man. My mental health is out of order. I can't stop drinking. I can't stop taking too many pain pills. I mean, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden it's like, I can't tell anybody about any of this. Right? And so that goes into that shame lock.
And a whole other thing about being a man.
Oh, yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
About
100%.
leading.
100%. Yeah. I can't be fallible, and I certainly can't be with those sorts of things, right? Like I can't be the person, especially when you're looking at firefighters and law enforcement. They're like, I can't be one of those guys. Those are people that we take to jail. Those are guys that we run calls on. Like I can't be one of those people. And so they're gonna lock that away for as long as they can.
Would you say that it's because naturally we're negative people?
Negativity has a big part in that, right? And if you do, which I'm sure you have, because I know a little bit about how you think, but we're hardwired for negativity. Negativity is one of those things that's kept people alive for a long periods of time, right? So we're kind of hardwired for that stuff. And then, negativity is a huge kind of pusher of all of those things. And then you look at, societal norms and things of that nature and how they kind of feed into that sort of stuff. So absolutely, negativity plays a big part in that, and so it's very difficult to.
So how would you say, if someone's who's listening right now, and they struggle with shame?
Yeah.
Like how would you go about having them deal with that?
So there's a lot to be said about how you deal with shame. Very simplistically,
generally,
right? The way that I kind of talk to people about, well, where does shame exist? Well, shame exists in the dark. So if I were to ask you, how do you dissolve and resolve darkness? How would you say that? Yeah, if I asked you, like, Brock, how do you dissolve or resolve darkness?
Well, first I would write down whatever that darkness was.
Sure.
And then I would work on it probably through talk therapy or talking to someone that I trust, maybe even before a therapist. I would tell someone.
Yep. And that's what you call, right? So what's the opposite of dark? Light. Right? And so that's what we call bringing it to light, right? So shame exists in the dark. We need to bring it to the light. And 100% of what you're talking about, it's like I start to identify what it is, and then I need to identify. And because this stuff is so we're so vulnerable and so fragile when it comes to these things, right? And think about it, we all have it, right? I'm no stranger to shame, right? I have things that I'm ashamed of, and that I kind of hold close to the vest. And you think about like how do I bring that to the light? If you're telling me bringing that to the light means I gotta tell somebody about it, oh man, right? And so it's important that you really start to identify people who are safe and people who are deserving of your story. I tell people this all the time. Not everyone is deserving of your story, right? When you start to get into therapy, and especially group therapy, there comes this very liberating thing about like all of a sudden I'm talking about things that I've never talked about. And there was a lot of that obviously at Off the Grid, right? When people start talking about and telling their story and that kind of deal. And then all of a sudden you see like guys just want to start dumping. They just want to start talking about all this stuff. And so I really coach people on, listen, making sure that the people that you are going to share your story with are deserving of your story. Because the last thing you want is to get down into some of this stuff that you're super ashamed of.
And someone to just go, whatever.
You did what? Or all of a sudden you get a phone call or you're in a group of people and someone's like, oh yeah, I talked to so-and-so and they told me that you... And you're like, what? So, interesting enough with really intimate people, sometimes that shame and vulnerability can be used against you. Sometimes it's consciously, sometimes it's subconsciously. But I think the first thing in kind of dealing with it, one is understanding what am I ashamed of, and that's not a very difficult thing to like. We know that's at the forefront, right? How do I know what I'm ashamed of? It's the stuff you're talking about in your head that you're not talking to anybody else about. It's the stuff that you're doing behind closed doors. It's the stuff you're hiding. It's the stuff you're lying about. That's the stuff that we're like really ashamed of. And then it's like, well, who's safe? Like, who's that safe person? I think this is really where...
What would you say about, like... So for the Off the Grid, you have 10 guys. You have guys from outside the country. You got guys from all over the country. People that you don't know. What would you say about that setting?
I think it's a good setting. One, because you're really offering people an opportunity. There's no, like, you got to talk about this and you got to say that. Like, you're just like, hey, you start where you feel safe in starting. Like, you talk about what you want to talk about, right? And so I will say me going first was probably a little unfair because I'm really used to telling my story.
I do that every single time though. I pick someone that I go, I know that you've been here, I know that you've done this. Because really, what most people, and you've experienced this, I know you have, most people don't know how the hell to tell their story. No. They don't know, like, how do I start, like right now, like last week? Or is this something like my most people don't even think about their development. No. You know? Like, what was my family life like when I was a kid? Yeah. You know? And that's what's so beautiful about this is when someone knows how to do this because and the more you do it, the better you get at it. Yes. Really. Yeah. And it's better for you. Correct. You learn more, you gain more knowledge just from speaking words out of your mouth based off of memory. But other people can look at that and be like, okay, I kind of understand this. This is kind of like semi-guidelines. The only negative side to that I would say is that someone who goes next, and I say this at the beginning of every single time we do these campfire talks, is I say, do not be the first guy to go up there and be like, right after the gnarly story and be like, well, my story is not gnarly like that, you know, because it happens all the time. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm glad I put you on the spot.
For sure. And I think, you know, on some level, I mean, that's as a facilitator and somebody who kind of knows who's in the audience, that's a bold move and it's a good move. But I say it's kind of unfair in the ways of like, when you do that with somebody such as myself who's pretty versed in telling their story, and I'm an open book, man. Like and I've told you, like, I leave out the details and all that stuff because a lot of times they're not important. And two, there's time restraints. I can't go all the way back to, you know, all the stuff that happened. But it really sets a tone of like, you know, that vulnerability piece because I'm raw. I don't hold back, man. And I think you saw that, right? And the bigger piece about me being able to share some more recent stuff in my life. All that other stuff is really history. I've been sober for 17 years. That's like historic stuff. Like there's none of that's really new. So as far as I'm concerned, right, and this goes back to the shame piece, all of that stuff that I talk about now, at one point in my life was crippling. It was like I wasn't going to talk about that kind of stuff. I wasn't going to share that stuff with people. And the way that I tell people, when shame is healed, if you imagine that you have kind of like a cut on your arm, right? It's a pretty good cut. It's a wound. And I walk up and I'm like, hey, Brock, what's that wound? And I push on that. What's going to happen? What are you going to do?
Do I have to cut?
Yeah, you have the cut on your arm. I walk up, I go, hey, Brock, what's that? And I push on it.
Defend myself, hit you, get frustrated.
You're probably going to react in a very poor, you're going to slap me and be like, dude, why would you do that? That hurts. That's the shame piece, right? That's the shame. That's raw. It's unhealed. When people push on that, right, and people say something about your mom who was super young and really attractive, right, you snap. Right? You push back on that. When people say, oh, you did those things or those things happened to you and it's not yet healed, like you react very poorly. That's your trauma kind of coming forward. So it's a shame. But then you imagine fast forward and you move along and it's like you got this nice scar and I walk up, I push on, I'm like, hey, Brock, what's that scar? What's this? And I push on it and you look down on it, you laugh. You're like, oh, that? Let me tell you how I got that. And that piece, and that's why I kind of say, well, it's almost unfair because that's where I'm at with that story, right? That's a scar. And I look at that and I'm like, oh, let me tell you how I got that scar. But at the same time, as a facilitator, from one to another, like that's a genius move because it sets a tone. It shows people that, hey, this guy was able to really talk. They don't know that I've told that story a million times.
Yeah, every single guy jaw dropped,
but
no clue.
They're able to see, but I feel like I'm really genuine in those moments and I'm vulnerable enough. I don't hide my emotions. If tears are coming, although I will say I reel them back a little, I don't let them go completely. It's just kind of my own issue, but I'm not afraid to show some emotion and those sorts of things. And so I think that really kind of set the tone for everybody kind of moving forward, and so guys are able to do that and it's really healing, but there's also this piece there that you're able to create where through doing the different things, and I don't know how much you want me to talk about the experience or anything, but through doing those different things that you have set up there, right? It's pretty genius in the ways of like, look, we're gonna go out and we're gonna tromps around and we're gonna do some physical stuff and we're gonna do some stuff that kind of bonds us together in this way and having fun, and then we're gonna go back and we're gonna talk about some real stuff and we're gonna answer some questions, right? And it creates this. Everybody gets to earn their way into that circle. You know what I mean? And it's like, hey, he talked about this and he talked about this. And so everyone starts to gain this real trust for one another. And that's what makes people worthy of the story. And those people are safe. And I don't have any doubt that people talk a little bit about what it was that they experienced, and that's fine. But I also know they're not doing it in a way of like being judgmental or harsh or mean or making fun of people who shared stuff. I think if they're sharing it with anybody, I don't think anybody's sharing in detail like, hey, this guy that was from California who works at this place and lives at this, like, they're not doing that, but they may be like, hey, there was a guy there, man, it was pretty heavy, and I really connected with him. So I think there's a lot to say about that and being able to help heal shame. I think it was a long way around the question that you asked, but
yeah, no, that's good. I also kind of want to go on a different topic here. I really, because you and I know each other outside of Off the Grid. That was actually one of the reasons why you came.
Correct.
What have you been doing like the past, I don't know, when did you start like this whole basis on day-to-day performance? Mm-hmm. Like your physical and your mental, like how do you deal with your own mental health and your own physical health, and how much do those two play a part in your everyday life?
Sure. When did I start the day to day? So interesting.
Was it like right when you got sober? You're like, yeah, no, I'm.
So it's interesting, right? So one of the things in early sobriety, and I talk a lot about that because it's the foundation that I operate from, but now it's so much more than just the absence of alcohol and drugs, right? Like that's the first step into this recovery process. It's like, how do I stop drinking and doing drugs, right? And so I remember this. There's been a couple pivotal points in my journey, but I remember vividly one day, right? I'm in the sober living, and there's a bunch of knuckleheads running around, and I'm sitting at the edge of my bunk, and I could swear my jaw is on the floor, man. I'm just mouth wide open, and I'm like, what's my life at, dude? And how am I here? And like, how am I gonna stop drinking, right? Like, I get it, the hard drugs, okay, right? I get it. Meth is bad. People shouldn't do meth. Like, I understand that. That makes sense logically. But how do I not like ever drink a beer again, right? Because you think, I want to be that guy who's at a barbecue and just has a beer, right? And I want to be able to have champagne at a wedding if I get married one day. And you just have these really weird thoughts about being completely absent of alcohol in your life. And I remember I'm sitting there, and a guy who became a really good friend of mine comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, you all right?" And I looked at him, I go, "I don't think I can not drink for the rest of my life." And he laughed. He goes, "What?" I go, how am I not supposed to drink for the rest of my life? And he kind of looked at me like, like when a kid asks you a question, you're like, kid, And he goes, "Can you not drink today?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Just worry about today." Right? And it's just that one day at a time thing. And I know it's cliche and everybody, associates that with AA and all that stuff. That's literally a footprint of my life over the last 17 years. One day at a time. How do you deal with your mental health? One day at a time. How do you deal with your physical health? One day at a time, right? How do you deal with your relationship? One day at a time. Just building that one day, right? There's a guy out there on Instagram or whatever, and I can't remember his name exactly, but he talks about win the minute, right? And it's like win the minute, win the hour, win the day, win the month, win the year, right? And it makes so much sense when you look at it, right? Like foundationally, how do you do this? Today. Why? Because it's all I can really worry about. I can't focus on what happened yesterday. I can learn from yesterday, right? I can take a look at yesterday, and I'm not an active member of AA anymore. I've gone more of a spiritual foundation these days. Church and Jesus and the Bible and all that does it for me. But I built a foundation in that program. But there's so much in that program, and there's a part in the big book that says, "We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace before we are halfway through." And that's the foundation of
neutral, man.
Working the 12 steps. It's like, listen, I'm not going to worry about the past. I'm not going to trip out on the future, right? I'm going to comprehend the word serenity, and I'm going to know peace in this moment, right? And so that's really a lot of what I do. Now, there's action steps to that. Well, how do you do that? Do I work out every single day? That's kind of the goal. Do I always achieve that? No. Is my mental health on point every single day? Am I spiritually fit with God every single day? No, but that's the goal, right? And so it's like taking these small steps every single day and just focusing on the day. How did you get sober for 17 years? One day at a time, bro. And I'm one bad decision away from a drug or drinking. Like, I could make a bad decision walking out of here. Now, God willing, I won't. And I'm safe to say I'm pretty sure I'm going to go home and not do that. But the point is, like, I don't know what tomorrow brings. I can take a look at a little bit of the history. But what is my mental health like today? What is my physical health like today? What is my emotional health like today? Right? And are there things that I can do day to day, like the cold plunges and the working out and the reading my Bible and the talking with people, are those things that I can do to solidify having a better day? Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and not even, I mean, what you just mentioned, a lot of people who feel empty or all like feel dark, like they're in a dark place.
Sure.
Just doing those things that you have said, like there's a lot of chemical reactions that are going on inside of your brain.
100%.
A lot of hormonal things going on inside of your brain that you don't really recognize, but those are the supplements. Those are the drugs that we should be taking.
Correct.
Every single day.
Yeah.
You know, like working out and doing an ice bath. Like if you just started off every single day just by working out and doing an ice bath, like all of the mental health stuff won't necessarily be as bad as it was yesterday.
Correct.
And then you add journaling to that. You add reading the Bible to that. You add spirituality, whatever it is. You add all of those things to that. And then you have this thing at the end of every single day, and you look back on your day and you're like, well, look at all the things that I just did.
Yep.
You know? And you talk about shame. Yeah. Like, am I enough? Like, you don't look back at a workout and you go, God, I hate that I just did that. Like, you look back at a workout and you may go, well, that was really hard. Yeah. But typically things that are hard feel really good. Yes. You know? And when you do an ice bath, that's the perfect example of that. Huge. Like you do not, like, nobody likes cold water. Sucks. I mean, the Iceman Hoff guy, like he probably eventually at some point was just like, you know what, like cold water, like I don't understand how
he's too deep into it at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like he can be the guy that's like, hey, you know what? I think I'm pretty much done with that cold water stuff. Like, no, you're
Iceman.
done.
His name was the Iceman. Yeah. But kind of going like that whole perspective of winning the day, you know, win each day. At the end of each day is a W. Like, it's not necessarily that you have to win every single day. It's that you have to try to win, you know? Yeah. And if you're working out and if you're journaling and if you are ice bathing, you're doing something spiritual. Yeah. I think that you can't look back at your day and be like, that was just a waste. You know?
Yeah, it certainly makes it more difficult, and I can tell you, like, the transition from like, and a big issue that we have in society, but a transition from like drugs and alcohol, right? That those things that you just mentioned will get you. They'll get you all the same things that drugs and alcohol will, but what's the difference? Drugs and alcohol do it now. Yeah. Instant gratification. I take that pill, I know what's going to happen.
Why don't you talk a bit about cocaine and what ice baths do?
Right?
You know?
100%, right? Like, you can look at the difference in... So, when it comes to ice baths, right, the cold plunge, which I've been doing for a while, you get some of that instantaneous stuff, it helps. One of the bigger pieces in being able to recover from these sorts of things is being able to delay instant gratification, right? Being able to say, listen, I'm going to put in the long work for the long goal. I'm not going to sacrifice the immediate, right, for the short term. In other words, I'm not going to take this or eat this because I'm going to feel good now. I'm going to delay that so that I can build up this resiliency and get to a much more balanced place in my life. The great thing about cold plunges is it gives you that instant, right? It instantly sucks. It instantly hurts. It instantly says, get out of this, and I mean now. And when you can sit your body down and just say, I'm in charge, right? And you're on because one of the things I tell myself, right? This is not a negotiation. This is not a negotiation. There's zero wiggle room in my mind for a negotiation. My mind is really good at being able to rationalize, justify, and negotiate its way out of some stuff really quickly. And so the minute that I start something I know is going to be hard, and you and I talked a little bit about this, I go through the checklist, right? When it comes to a cold plunge, my feet are going to hurt, my hands are going to hurt, it's going to be cold, my skin's going to tingle, I'm going to want to get out. Like, check, yeah.
Breathing's going to be hard.
Breathing's going to be super hard, right? Yeah. Check off all the boxes. Okay, that's to be expected. Is anything unexpected outside of those things going to happen? The only one thing that happens to me is the negotiation. And there can be no negotiation. So let's get in there, let's grind it out, and let's get it done. And you and I have talked a lot about this too, in the ways of like, you're not a timer guy, right? And I get it. I go back and forth. I go like, okay, I'm going to do a timer, or I'm at least going to have a timer running. and you're one of those guys that's like, no, build the wall, jump over each wall, right? Tolerate it, then sit yourself still, which I get the aspect of both. And I can say that, setting a timer sometimes is very helpful for me because...
Well, I always set a timer. I just don't follow it.
You don't follow it, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes for me, it's like, that's the negotiation. Like, because it'll become so strong, it's like, okay, listen, dude, you can do this for 3 minutes, all right? Sit down, suck it up for 3 minutes. We can grind this out for 3 minutes. So, but yeah, not negotiating. But back to the instant gratification piece, right? Like, there is so much. Sometimes I think it's just the sheer relief of getting out of the cold water that's just like, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm no longer in that pool of suck, right? Like, this just is brutal. And now I'm out, and it's like that instant relief, and then...
what's interesting, too, is like when I'm thinking of this from the lens of like when you have something that throughout your day that is really bad, something that did not go according to plan, and you were in it, and whether you were thriving or absolutely sucking, you know, you don't get that feeling like you're talking about.
No.
You don't just go, oh, it's done. Like I'm done with my terrible work day.
Right.
That carries on into your family life afterwards, your spouse or your children or pretty much anyone who's around your roommate. Like, I really like all the different thoughts that come from doing something so small in the morning like that. 5 minutes in the morning it takes. And then you learn how to deal with like, okay, that was crap. And then all of a sudden I'm out of it and I'm good now, like trying to, and mentally, like you come up with all these different, I don't know if it's like neural connections, but it's like the rest of your day, when you go through crap, you're like, okay, that's the end of that.
Yeah.
Now I need to go and focus on this. Like I'm going to go through crap and I'm going to go through crap every single day.
Correct.
Some days you don't, but I think there's just so much. It's such a simple, dumb thing, but it's like, it has become a staple of my life.
Yeah, and it does so much in terms of adversity and all of these things. I practice jiu-jitsu, and it does the same thing as kind of the ice bath in the ways of like, I tell people a lot of times, like it gives me the ability to respond to things versus react to things, right? So ice bath is the same way. Like I have this instant reaction, and that reaction is get out. And the response is no, breathe, sit still, sit down. Yes, I understand that this is uncomfortable, but we're going to be okay. We can get through this. Focus on breath, right? Because the reaction is get out and get out now. And so that carries over. And jiu-jitsu is the same way. It's like when you're in a position and somebody's trying to enforce their will on you, it's like I can react really poorly and get myself hurt, or I can slow down, I can breathe, I can look at the next move, and it gives me an opportunity to respond versus react. When I do a cold plunge early in the morning before work, and then I get, kind of get my day started and all that, I feel like that carries over, right? Because that same thing is filtered through when somebody comes up and there's a crisis and somebody's not acting right and somebody's upset, right? Which I'm sure you deal with a lot, right? The same. And it's like, my instant reaction inside is that I just kind of jumped, like, but that's the react, like, oh, you want to just like get away and react poorly, and it's like, hold on, slow down, recognize your emotion. I'm uncomfortable. I'm kind of buying into their anger, so I can be angry and anxious too. Hold on, breathe through this, and now let's respond appropriately, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Okay, I got a session in 10 minutes. Is there anything that you kind of want to add to this? Maybe speak into someone who's listening.
For sure.
You can just add your own little piece to the end of this.
Yeah. I think, if we go off of, my life's experiences, obviously, which is, the addiction battles and some of the shame around that. I think understanding that there is a way to get out of it. There is a way to get well. I've never met anybody that says, the worst thing I ever did was stop drinking and using drugs. it completely ruined my life. You know, I've only heard the exact opposite. You know, and no matter how far down the scale you've gone in this whole thing, like, there's a way out. You know, I was a guy who lost everything. And so if you're that guy or that girl and you're wondering, is there a way out? I mean, there's a way out. There's people out here that want to help, whether it be your local church, whether it be your local treatment center, whether you reach out to Off the Grid and get connected with myself or somebody else. There's resources, there's hope, and there's help. But it starts with you. You gotta reach out. You know, closed mouths don't get fed, right? That whole kind of thing. It's like you gotta speak up, and yeah, there's some things that are that you might not like about the situation that you're in, but getting help is only gonna make things better. You know, and there's a quality of life that's well beyond what it is that you might be dealing with now. And the other thing is to understand that those around you, although they may be a little disappointed in some things, at the end of the day, they do want what's best for you. So being able to reach out and let them know that you're having a hard time, that you're struggling with it, and that you need help, you got to tell somebody. You got to tell somebody. You can't keep going the way you're going, for sure. Yeah.
I love it. Chris, thank you so much for being on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, dude. It was a good time.
Yeah, you hear the music?
I do.
Right
yeah, like, hey, getting after it.
Yeah. For those who don't know, we record these at my office. In my office, we are our entire place here, it's like a freaking workout center. So we got the speakers bumping.
Yeah.
But
sign up for Off the Grid. You won't be disappointed for sure.
Off the Grid.
Get out there and get it done.
Thank you for the Off the Grid plug.
100%.
I feel like we still have some more stuff to talk about, so I would not doubt it if you come on here again.
Let me know, dude.
Like 10 episodes from now or something.
Sure, whatever.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for listening, and have a great day.
Off.